Hello, my name is Lucas Hayes, 33 years old. I am a U.S. Army officer. Today I want to tell you the story of what I've lost, what I've fought to reclaim, and how I learned to rise from the ashes of my own life. The story begins at my parents' well-kept two-story house in Texas, where the hot winds blew through my bedroom window every August. I'm not a millionaire, nor do I own a mansion or vast wealth. What I have is a heart that still beats strongly and a rifle that has accompanied me through dusty battlefields. My parents' house, where I grew up, was a two-story red brick home. Not overly luxurious, but always meticulously maintained. The polished wooden floors gleamed, and the faint scent of floor cleaner mingled with the aroma of the coffee my mother brewed every morning. My parents were the epitome of Texas's middle class, not too wealthy but never poor. My parents always proudly boasted to the neighbors about the achievements of my younger brother and me. My father, Frank Hayes, a retired banker, was the kind of man who wore a neatly pressed suit even to the grocery store. My mother, Ellen, was the type of woman who demanded perfection in everything, from the dinner table to the family's reputation. They loved me, I know, but their love came with expectations like an invisible rope tightening around my neck. As the eldest son, I was the one they pinned their hopes on to bring honor to the family name. But I didn't choose the path of a lawyer or doctor as they had dreamed. I enlisted in the military at 22, right after graduating college. That decision disappointed them, though they never said it outright. I saw it in my father's eyes, in the way my mother sighed when she spoke of the opportunities I'd missed. But the military was where I found myself. There I learned to stand firm on the line between life and death, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. I have no regrets. My younger brother, Brandon, 28, is my parents' pride and joy. He studied law, lives off our parents' support, and always knows how to please everyone. Brandon has a charming smile, perfectly styled hair, and a way with words that makes people nod in agreement. He's the perfect version of what my parents wanted me to be. I'm not jealous, honestly. But sometimes I wonder if he's ever truly faced hardship or if he just glides through life like a gentle breeze, leaving no trace. And then there's Rachel. Just saying her name makes my heart skip a beat. Rachel, 30, is a nurse at the downtown hospital. We met in college at a party I was dragged to by friends. She stood in the corner of the room wearing a pale green dress, her glossy black hair tied up high, holding a glass of water instead of wine. She smiled at me, and from that moment I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. Rachel is unlike any woman I've ever met. She's gentle yet strong, always able to make me laugh even when I'm at my grumpiest. She listens, truly listens, as if every word I say matters. We've been together for 6 years, weathering tough times together. When she lost her job when I was injured during a training exercise and spent 2 weeks in the hospital, Rachel was the one holding my hand, whispering that everything would be okay, even when she was scared herself. 2 weeks ago, I knelt before her in our front yard under the bright moonlight and proposed. All I had was a simple silver ring bought with my savings. Rachel looked at me, her eyes shimmering with tears, but she didn't say yes. She just hugged me tightly and whispered, "Lucas, I need time, but I'll wait for you." I nodded, though my heart felt heavy. I knew my upcoming deployment would last 18 months, and I feared the distance might erode our love, but I still trust her. I have to. As I sit here writing these words, I'm packing my bags. My military backpack lies in the corner of the room next to a pair of boots still covered in dust from my last training session. I've checked everything: my uniform, my dagger, and a small notebook where I'll write letters to Rachel. I'm not great with words, but I want her to know I'm thinking of her every day. Those letters, I hope, will be the bridge between us, keeping our love alive through the months of separation. The night before my departure, I sat on the porch watching the moonlight filter through the curtains. A gentle breeze carried the Texas heat and the scent of wildflowers from the nearby field. I thought about my parents, about Brandon, about Rachel. I thought about what I was leaving behind and what I would face ahead. War is never easy. I've seen comrades fall, heard bombs explode in the dead of night, But this time I feel a different kind of fear. Not of death, but of losing the things I love most. The next morning I put on my uniform, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and stepped out of the house. My parents stood at the door. My mother hugged me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Be careful, son," she said, her voice choked with emotion. My father just patted my shoulder, his gaze stern. Brandon stood behind them, offering a faint smile and saying something about staying healthy. Rachel came to see me off at the airport. She wore the green dress I love, her hair loose and natural. We didn't say much, just stood there, our hands tightly clasped. "Write to me, okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I promise," I replied, squeezing her hand. "Will you wait for me?" She nodded, but her eyes held a sadness I couldn't quite decipher. I wanted to ask, to know what she was thinking, but the airport loudspeaker blared, announcing my flight. I kissed her, a hurried but deep kiss, then turned and walked away. When I looked back, she was still there, her small figure standing amid the bustling crowd, until I disappeared from view. On the plane, I sat by the small window, watching Texas shrink into patches of green and brown beneath the wings. I pulled out my notebook and wrote my first letter. "Rachel, today is the first day I'm away from you. I don't know what lies ahead, but I know I love you. Wait for me." I folded it carefully, imagining it would soon reach her hands. I pictured her opening it, her gentle smile spreading across her face, and that thought gave me the strength to face the months ahead. But little did I know that back home, a plot was being woven by the very people I called family. I was deployed to a military base in the middle of the desert, where the heat scorched my skin and sand clung to everything, from my clothes to the crevices of my teeth. The hum of Humvee engines, the distant crack of gunfire, and the smell of gunpowder became part of daily life. I was tasked with patrolling, escorting convoys, and sometimes confronting the enemy head-on. Each day was a battle, not only against the dangers out there, but also against the fear within me. I remember one night when an artillery shell exploded less than a mile from our camp. The entire team stayed awake, lying flat on the ground, listening to the whistle of the wind mingling with the blast. I clutched Rachel's photo in my pocket, whispering, "Wait for me, please." Letters were how I held on to her. Every night, under the dim glow of an oil lamp in the camp, I pulled out my notebook and wrote to Rachel. I told her about the long patrol days, the sandstorms that obscured the sky, and a young soldier named Tommy who sang country music to make the team laugh. "Rachel, today I saw a fiery red sunset over the desert. I wish you were here to watch it with me," I wrote, each line like a thread tying me back to Texas, to her. I sent the letters through the military system, certain they would reach her. I had no way to call regularly. Cell signal was weak and every spare moment was precious. But I believed those letters were enough to keep my promise to her. Some nights I lay on my cot staring at the tent's ceiling, thinking of Rachel. I remembered her smile, the way she tied her hair back when working at the hospital, the tight hug she gave me before I boarded the plane. I wondered what she was doing, whether she was standing under the oak tree in front of her house, gazing at the moonlight as I once did. I wrote letters almost every week, even if some were just a few short lines. "Rachel, I'm okay, I miss you." I'm not a poet, but every word was true. My heart poured out to her. The months dragged on and I lived between two worlds, one of sand, bullets, and sleepless nights, the other of letters, where I dreamed of the day I'd return, kneel before Rachel again, and hear her say, "Yes." I didn't receive any replies from her, but I assumed she was busy or that the mail was delayed because of the war. I had no doubts. I trusted her just as I trusted myself. After 18 months that felt like an eternity in the trenches, I stepped off the plane at Dallas Airport, feeling like a man returning from another planet. The military backpack weighed heavily on my shoulder, but in my pocket I carried the silver ring, the one I'd kept through the entire deployment, waiting for the day I'd propose to Rachel again. I had survived months that many of my comrades didn't. Tommy, the young soldier who loved singing country songs, had fallen in an ambush 3 months earlier. I stood before his body at the base, vowing to live well, not just for myself, but for those who couldn't return. After leaving the airport, I took a taxi to the familiar red brick house in the Texas suburbs. My heart brimmed with hope and anticipation, each beat carrying a sweet vision. Rachel running out to throw her arms around me, just like in the dreams I had under the desert's sandy, smoke-filled skies. I had told my family I was coming back today and asked them not to pick me up at the airport. All I wanted was a warm family dinner with my parents, my brother, and Rachel. That was enough. But when the front door opened, a heavy atmosphere hit me like a punch, so cold it froze all my expectations. No Rachel, no laughter, no embrace I had imagined for 18 months. Just my parents sitting silently in the living room, their faces tense to the point of chilling. My mother stood and hugged me, but the embrace lacked its usual warmth. "You're back, Lucas," she said, her voice dry. My father, still in his impeccably pressed suit, merely nodded, avoiding my gaze. I asked immediately, "Where's Rachel?" "She knew I was coming today, right?" My mother sighed, sitting on the sofa and motioning for me to sit across from her. "Lucas, there's something we need to talk about." Her voice was calm, but my heart began to race. "Rachel, she's married to Brandon. They've moved away, living in Austin." It felt like the ground collapsed beneath me. The air in the room turned stifling, as if I were back in the desert, caught in a sandstorm. "Married," I repeated, my voice hoarse. "To Brandon?" "My brother, what are you talking about?" My father spoke, his tone as firm as when he taught me to drive at 16. "Lucas, you chose to be a soldier, to be gone for years. Did you think a girl like Rachel would wait forever? She needed a stable life, and Brandon gave her that." I shot to my feet, my fists clenched. "I wrote to her every week. I promised I'd come back. How could she do this? And Brandon, how could he?" My mother looked at me, her eyes colder than I'd ever seen. "Lucas, don't be foolish. You chose the military, chose war over family, over Rachel. Do you think you have the right to blame anyone? If you hadn't left, things would be different. Rachel chose the better man. You need to accept it." It felt like a knife had been plunged into my heart. "Foolish?" I said. "I fought to protect this country, to protect this family. And Brandon, what did he do? Steal my girlfriend?" My father stood, his voice rising. "That's enough, Lucas. You don't get to blame your brother. Brandon was here taking care of Rachel when you weren't. You abandoned her, and now you face the consequences." I looked at my parents, the people I thought would always have my back, and felt a different kind of pain. Not just the loss of Rachel, but the betrayal of my own family. I wanted to scream, to punch the wall, but I just stood there, breathing heavily, trying not to collapse. "Where's Rachel?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I want to hear it from her." My mother shook her head. "They've moved, Lucas. She doesn't want to see you. You need to let this go." I turned and walked out of the house without another word. The silver ring in my pocket felt heavy as lead. I had survived war, bombs and bullets, only to return and discover that the real enemy wasn't in the desert, it was in this house. I stepped outside, unsure where to go, knowing only that I couldn't stay there another second. Rachel, the woman I loved, was now my brother's wife. My family, the people I trusted, had turned their backs on me, blaming me for the choices I made. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The letters I sent, the promises I kept, they couldn't be meaningless. I would find the truth no matter the cost. That night, I wandered like a lost soul through the familiar streets of suburban Texas, past the dry, grassy field where Rachel and I used to stroll, past the old oak tree where I proposed to her. The silver ring in my pocket rubbed against my chest with every breath, a bitter reminder. Finally, I stopped at a cheap motel off the highway where the neon sign flickered. I lay on the hard bed, staring at the stained ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments in my mind. Rachel married Brandon. They moved to Austin. My parents called me foolish, but why? Why didn't she wait for me? Why didn't any of my letters reach her? The next morning, I woke with stinging eyes and a newfound resolve. I needed answers and I knew where to start. Diana, Rachel's best friend, was the only person I could trust. Diana and Rachel had been close since college, working together at the hospital, sharing secrets Rachel sometimes didn't even tell me. If anyone knew what had happened, it was Diana. I found her number in an old contact list, my fingers trembling as I dialed. After 3 rings, Diana's voice came through, surprised but warm. "Lucas, is that really you? You're back?" "Diana, I need to see you," I said, my voice hoarse from a sleepless night. "It's about Rachel. I need the truth." She was silent for a moment, then replied, her voice lower, "Okay. Meet me at the cafe on Main Street, 11 o'clock. The small cafe on Main Street was a place Rachel and I used to visit, with large glass windows overlooking the bustling street. As I walked in, the smell of roasted coffee hit me, mingling with memories of days spent sitting across from Rachel, listening to her talk about long hospital shifts. Diana was already there in the corner, her blonde hair tied up high, her blue eyes looking at me with a mix of pity and concern. She wore a white blouse, likely just off a shift. I sat down and got straight to the point. "Diana, Rachel married Brandon. My parents said she doesn't want to see me. What happened? I need to know." Diana sighed, setting her coffee cup down, her eyes searching for a way to frame the story. "Lucas, I don't know where to begin, but you deserve the truth. What happened while you were gone? It's not as simple as you think." Diana spoke slowly, her voice heavy with emotion, as if reliving those months. She told me that when I left Texas, Rachel tried to hold on to hope. She waited for my letters, checking the mailbox every day, but nothing came. "She called me crying," Diana said. "She thought you'd forgotten her, or worse, that you didn't make it back." My heart tightened. The letters I wrote, the words that held my entire heart, where had they gone? Diana went on, explaining that Rachel frequently visited my parents' house, hoping to hear news of me through them. But each time, my mother, Ellen, said things that planted doubts in Rachel's mind. "She told Rachel you'd never leave the military, that you chose war over her," Diana recounted. "She said Rachel shouldn't waste her youth, that she deserved someone who'd stay by her side." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. My mother, the woman I thought always wanted the best for me, had stabbed me in the back. And then there was Brandon. Diana's face twisted as she mentioned him. Brandon started showing up everywhere. He brought coffee to the hospital, took Rachel out to dinner, said all the right things. At first she refused, but you know Rachel, she was lonely, Lucas. With no letters from you, nothing to hold on to, she started to waver. Diana paused, looking at me, her eyes filled with guilt. "I tried to tell her, Lucas. I told her to wait for you, but your mother and Brandon, they were like a storm, sweeping her away." My blood boiled. "You're saying they manipulated her? What did they do with my letters?" Diana nodded, her voice quieter. "Rachel once saw your mother open the family mailbox and take out a letter she suspected was from you. When Rachel asked, your mother said it was just a bill. Rachel wasn't sure, but she started to suspect something. By then, it was too late. Brandon proposed to her 9 months after you left. She said yes, not because she loved him, but because she was exhausted. She thought you'd abandoned her." Diana's words left me numb. I was utterly disoriented after learning what had happened while I was gone. I went to the old oak tree where I had proposed to Rachel. The Texas wind blew through, carrying the scent of dry grass and memories of her. Her gentle smile, the tight hug before I boarded the plane. But now Diana's words echoed in my mind, cutting into my heart like a knife. "Your mother intercepted your letters. Brandon exploited Rachel's loneliness. She thought you'd abandoned her. My family, the people I trusted most, had betrayed me. Rachel, the woman I loved, was now my brother's wife." I clutched the silver ring in my pocket, feeling it burn against my chest. I wanted to find the truth, to confront them, but at that moment I only felt an endless void swallowing me whole. I didn't return to my parents' red brick house. I couldn't. That house, with its polished wooden floors and the smell of my mother's coffee, was now just a reminder of betrayal. I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of Dallas, a rundown place with stained walls and creaking windows that rattled with every gust of wind. It wasn't a home, just a place where I existed. I tossed my military backpack into a corner, my dust-covered combat boots sitting untouched like silent witnesses to what I'd been through. In this apartment, I was no longer Lucas Hayes, the officer who stood strong amidst bullets and bombs. I was just a man abandoned by his family, forsaken by the woman he loved. For the first few days, I didn't leave my bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting memories of war and betrayal blend together. I saw Tommy again, the young soldier who sang country songs, lying dead in the ambush, his blood seeping into the sand. I heard the bombs exploding, the shouts of my comrades in the night. And then I saw Rachel, her eyes when I proposed, her voice whispering, "I'll wait for you." But she didn't wait. She chose Brandon. No, Diana said she was manipulated, pushed into a marriage she didn't want by my mother and Brandon. I wanted to believe that, but the pain was like a fire, consuming all reason. I started keeping a journal, no longer for Rachel, but for myself. I wrote about the war, the letters I sent, the nights I dreamed of her. Today I learned the truth. I wrote one night, my hand trembling on the page. My family took everything from me, but what did I do wrong? I fought for my country. I kept my promise to Rachel. Why did they do this? Writing those words didn't erase the pain, but it kept me from going mad. After a week, I knew I needed help. I sought out a military psychologist at a small office near the Dallas base. Dr. Karen, a middle-aged woman with gentle but sharp eyes, sat across from me, listening. "Lucas, you've been through war and now a personal loss. What you're feeling, anger, pain, disorientation, is normal. But you need to face it." I told her everything. About Rachel, my family, the letters that never arrived. Karen nodded, taking notes, then asked, "Who are you angriest at? Your family, Rachel, or yourself?" The question froze me. I wanted to say my mother, Brandon, but deep down I wondered if I was to blame. If I hadn't enlisted, if I hadn't left Rachel, would things be different? Nightmares began to haunt me. I dreamed of standing in the desert, holding a letter for Rachel, only for the sand to snatch it away. I dreamed of Brandon, a victorious smile on his face, holding Rachel's hand at the altar. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. Karen taught me breathing techniques, how to write down my dreams, to confront them, but each day I felt myself sinking deeper into darkness. One afternoon, I met a man named Marcus at a small bar near the base. Marcus, a veteran in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a weathered face marked by a long scar on his cheek, sat down beside me. He ordered a beer and looked at me as if he could read every ounce of pain in my eyes. "You look like you've been run over by a truck, Hayes," he said, his voice deep but tinged with humor. I told him my story, not because I wanted to confide, but because I needed someone to understand. Marcus listened without interrupting until I finished. Then he took a sip of his beer and looked me in the eye. "Lucas, I've seen men lose everything, family, friends, themselves, but you know what makes a soldier get back up? Justice. If you don't fight for justice for yourself, who will?" Marcus's words pierced the darkness within me like a ray of light. I thought of Rachel, the intercepted letters, my mother and Brandon. They had stolen my happiness, but I wasn't a man who gave up. I had survived war. I believed I could survive this. I left the bar, stepping onto a street bathed in the glow of the sunset. Marcus's words echoed in my mind. Fight for justice. I had to act. I couldn't keep drowning in pain like this. I decided I would track down those letters, confront my family, and uncover the truth. Rachel might no longer be mine, but I wouldn't let them take my dignity. The silver ring in my pocket felt heavier, a reminder that my story wasn't over yet. Back at the small apartment on the outskirts of Dallas, I opened my old laptop, the only thing I'd brought from the military base. The blue light from the screen illuminated my face, reflecting my tired but determined eyes. I started with what Diana had told me. My mother intercepted my letters. Brandon manipulated Rachel, and the letters Rachel wrote to me were also taken. If the letters I sent from the Middle East never reached Rachel, they had to be somewhere. And if my mother was involved, there had to be traces. I logged into my military email account where I'd sent a few messages to Rachel when I couldn't write by hand. The inbox was empty with no replies. But when I checked the sent folder, I noticed some emails had been deleted, not by me. Someone had accessed my account. I'm no tech expert, but I knew I needed help. I contacted Jake, an old comrade from the base who used to work in cybersecurity. "Jake, I need to recover some deleted emails," I said over the phone, my voice tense. "Is there a way?" "What kind of trouble are you in, Hayes?" Jake asked, half joking, half serious. "Big trouble," I replied. "My family. They did something to my letters. I need to know." Jake agreed to help. While waiting for him, I returned to my notebook, jotting down every detail Diana had shared. My mother opening the mailbox, Brandon showing up at the hospital, Rachel's exhaustion. I drew a timeline from the day I left Texas to when Rachel married Brandon. 9 months. Just 9 months for everything to fall apart. I wondered how Rachel was now, whether she was happy in Austin with Brandon or suffering like I was. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I sought out a lawyer, Henry Caldwell, a specialist in family disputes, recommended by a veteran at the bar. His office was in downtown Dallas, a small room with shelves packed with case files and the smell of old paper. I sat across from him, recounting the story, the intercepted letters, my family's manipulation, and the shock of learning Rachel had married Brandon. "I want evidence," I said firmly. "I want to know what they did, and I want justice." Mr. Caldwell nodded, his eyes sharp. "If your family tampered with your mail, that could constitute a violation of privacy, but we need concrete evidence, letters, emails, or any documents proving they deliberately blocked communication." He agreed to take the case, provided I could supply more information. "Start with your parents' house," he said. "If they kept the letters, they might still be there." I didn't want to return to the red brick house where my parents had blamed me, but I knew I had to. One evening, when I knew my parents were at a neighbor's dinner party, I drove there. Standing at the front door, my heart pounded like it did during patrols in the desert, unsure of what lay ahead. I used my old key, opened the door, and stepped inside. The familiar smell of coffee and floor cleaner hit me, but now it only made me shudder. After hours of searching and rummaging through every corner of the house, I finally found them. The letters I wrote to Rachel, and the ones she wrote to me. My mother had hidden them in a wooden box under her bed. Later, Jake informed me that my email account had been accessed from my parents' home computer. These pieces of evidence were my weapons, and I would use them to expose the truth. Marcus was right. I had to fight for justice for myself. I was no longer the broken soldier lost in the dark. I was Lucas Hayes, and I would make my family pay for what they had done. But I knew I needed a bigger plan than just confronting them directly. If I faced my parents or Brandon, they would deny everything, blame me as they had before. I needed the world to know the truth. I thought of Sarah, an old friend from college who was now an investigative reporter for the Dallas Morning News. Sarah had a reputation for digging into sensitive stories, and she owed me a favor from the time I helped her escape a drunk at a bar during our sophomore year. I called her, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Sarah, I have a story for you, but I want to stay anonymous. It's about a soldier betrayed by his family while on duty." Sarah agreed to meet me at a small cafe in downtown Dallas. As I told her the story, from the letters I wrote, my mother's manipulation, to the shock of learning Rachel had married Brandon, Sarah listened, her eyes lighting up the way a reporters do when they sense a big story. "Lucas, this isn't just a family matter," she said, her voice resolute. "It's a story about loyalty, betrayal, and what a soldier faces when they come home. I'll make sure it gets published." I handed everything over to Sarah, asking her not to reveal my identity. "Call me a veteran," I said. "I don't want fame. I want justice." Sarah nodded in agreement. I left the cafe feeling both relieved and anxious. I had dropped a bomb, and I didn't know how it would explode. 4 days later, an article appeared in the Dallas Morning News with a bold headline: "A soldier betrayed by family while serving." Sarah's writing was sharp, keeping my identity anonymous but laying out every detail clearly. A military officer sent letters from the battlefield to his girlfriend, only to discover his family intercepted them, manipulated her, and pushed her into marrying his brother. The article quoted heartfelt excerpts from the letters hidden in the wooden box. Sarah ended with a piercing question: "Is loyalty to one's country worth the price of betrayal by family?" The article spread like wildfire. By noon, it was all over social media, shared by veteran groups, local news outlets, and even strangers. I sat in my apartment scrolling through comments on X. "I can't believe a family would do this to a soldier. They should be ashamed," one veteran wrote. "I cried reading this. I lost my family to war too. This soldier needs support." Jake, my old comrade, texted, "Hayes, you did good. The whole team at the base is behind you." In the Texas suburbs, my family began to feel the consequences. Neighbors stopped greeting my mother when she went out to the garden, and the people who used to come over for dinner now avoided her. My father, who prided himself on the family's respectable reputation, was shunned by his friends at the golf club. But the hardest blow landed on Brandon. The prestigious law firm in Austin where he worked suspended him for conduct damaging to the company's reputation. Diana, through a mutual acquaintance, told me Brandon showed up at the office looking haggard, trying to explain himself, but no one wanted to listen. I didn't smile when I heard the news. I only felt a cold, empty void, not joy, but the sense that justice was coming, slowly but inexorably. About a month after the article was published, I left the rundown apartment on the outskirts of Dallas, where the stained walls and creaking windows had witnessed my nights drowned in nightmares. I moved to a new apartment closer to downtown, small but bright, with large windows overlooking a park. The light-colored wooden floors, the smell of fresh paint, and a small table by the window, where I placed my notebook and a cactus Marcus had given me, marked a new beginning. "You need something as resilient as you," he'd said, a wrinkled smile on his weathered face. This apartment wasn't home, but it was a start for a new Lucas. I began working at a veterans support center, serving as a counselor for people like me, soldiers who returned with scars on their souls. The job didn't pay much, but every time I helped a veteran overcome a nightmare or rediscover hope, I felt like I was healing myself. I met people like Tom, a former Marine who lost a leg in Afghanistan, and Lisa, a combat medic tormented by PTSD. I listened to them, sharing just enough of my own story to let them know I understood. "You've been through hell, Hayes," Tom said once, clapping my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think." In the mornings, I jogged around the park, my breath mingling with Dallas's cool air. I'd pause at a wooden bench watching the sunrise, its golden light filtering through the oak trees, reminding me of the oak in Texas where I proposed to Rachel. I no longer cried when I thought of her, but the pain lingered like an old scar aching when the wind turned. I carried the silver ring in my pocket, not to remember, but to remind myself that I had loved, fought, and survived. My family didn't leave me alone. About 2 weeks after I moved into the new place, my mother called, leaving her first voicemail. "Lucas, you can't do this to our family. You know I love you. Call me back." Her voice trembled, but I heard the anger mixed with fear. I deleted the message, not responding. My father called 2 days later, his tone stern. "Lucas, enough. You're destroying this family. We need to talk." I stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the callback button, but then I turned it off. I didn't want to hear excuses or be blamed again. Brandon tried the hardest. He sent a long, emotional text. "Brother, I didn't want this to happen. Rachel, she chose me. Can't you forgive?" I read it and gave a bitter laugh. Forgive? He had exploited Rachel's loneliness, stolen my happiness, and now dared to ask for forgiveness? I blocked his number, not replying. Diana told me Brandon was unraveling. The law firm didn't just suspend him, they were considering firing him due to public pressure. My mother stopped leaving the house, afraid of the neighbors' stares. My father, once proud of his reputation, now sat silently in the living room staring out at the yard. I didn't feel joy knowing they were suffering. I only felt a cold, empty void. Justice had arrived, but it didn't fill the hole in my heart. About 2 months later, Diana texted, "Lucas, Rachel wants to meet you. She's not okay. She's in Austin, but we'll come to Dallas if you agree." My heart raced as I read the message. Rachel, the woman I once loved, dreamed of a future with, now Brandon's wife. I wrote back, "What does she want, Diana?" Diana replied instantly, "She wants to talk, to tell you the truth. She regrets everything, Lucas. Brandon doesn't love her, he just wanted to beat you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to see her, to hear her voice, to look into her eyes and know if she was sincere. Another part was afraid of reopening the wound, afraid I wasn't strong enough to face her. The next morning I jogged, stopping at the park bench, watching the sunrise. I thought of Marcus, Tom, and the veterans I was helping. They faced their pain, so why couldn't I? I texted Diana back, "Okay. Tell her to meet me at the park near my apartment Saturday, 10 a.m. Saturday arrived, a rare cool day in Dallas with white clouds drifting across a blue sky. I stood under an oak tree in the park wearing a light blue shirt, hands in my pockets, the silver ring still there. Rachel appeared, her small frame in a gray coat, her dark hair loose and disheveled, thinner than I remembered. Her eyes were red as if she'd been crying. "Lucas," she said, her voice trembling, standing a few steps away. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, unsure what to say. We sat on the wooden bench, a small gap between us that felt like an ocean. She began, her voice low but clear. "I don't know how to make you forgive me, but I want you to know the truth. When you left, I waited for your letters every day. Your mother, she told me you didn't want me anymore, that you chose the military. She opened the mail, Lucas. I saw her take a letter from the box, but she said it was a bill. I wanted to believe in you, but I was so lonely." My heart ached as I listened. She continued, her voice breaking. "Brandon was everywhere. He brought coffee, took me to dinner, said you wouldn't come back. I was weak, Lucas. I thought you'd abandoned me. When he proposed, I said yes, not because I loved him, but because I was exhausted, but I was wrong. I never stopped loving you." Tears fell, streaming down her cheeks. I wanted to hold her, to erase the pain, but I stayed still, my hands clenched in my pockets. "Rachel," I said, my voice hoarse, "do you know what those letters meant to me? I wrote every night amidst bombs and bullets just to keep you in my heart. And they took it all away." She nodded, sobbing. "I know, Lucas, I read the article. I know what your mother did. I'm sorry. If I'd been stronger, if I hadn't believed them." Her voice broke and I couldn't hold back. I reached out and took her hand. It was cold, trembling, like that of someone caught in a storm. "I wouldn't blame you if you hated me," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." I looked at her, her eyes still those of the Rachel I loved, gentle, sincere, but now scarred. "I don't hate you," I said, my voice low, "but I don't know if I can forgive. Not now." She nodded, wiping her tears, then stood. "I understand. I just want you to live well, Lucas. You deserve it." She turned and walked away, her small figure fading under the oak's canopy. 6 months after meeting Rachel, I left Dallas, not to escape, but to find a true fresh start. I moved to San Antonio, a city with tree-lined streets, a quiet river winding through, and an air steeped in Texas history. I rented a small apartment in Alamo Heights, with a balcony overlooking red-tiled rooftops and the cheerful chirping of sparrows each morning. The apartment smelled of fresh wood, its white walls bright, and a small bookshelf held my books on psychology and memoirs of veterans. By the window, Marcus's cactus thrived, a reminder that I could survive any desert. I continued my work as a counselor at the San Antonio Veterans Support Center, a low brick building with a small courtyard of wildflowers. This job was my light, where I found meaning after months drowning in pain. I worked with veterans like Javier, a special forces soldier with PTSD who woke up at night haunted by gunfire in his dreams. Or Maria, a former pilot grappling with guilt over a friend's death in a helicopter crash. I sat with them in the counseling room, soft light streaming through the window onto the wooden table, listening to stories they dared not share with anyone else. I shared parts of my own, not everything, just enough for them to know I understood. I thought I'd lost everything once, I told Javier one day as he spoke of his nightmares. But I learned that no matter what you lose, you can rebuild brick by brick. In the afternoons, I taught coping skills classes, guiding veterans through slow breathing, journaling, or facing war memories. I stood before the class, my voice steady but calm, looking at weathered yet hopeful faces. We can't erase the past, I said, but we can choose how it defines us. You're here, alive, still fighting. That's already a victory. Those words weren't just for them. They were for me. Each time I helped a veteran find their light, I felt my own wounds heal, even if just a little. Every morning I jogged along the San Antonio River, past ancient stone bridges and small shops fragrant with the smell of tacos. I'd pause at a bench watching the sunrise, its golden light reflecting on the water. I carried the silver ring in my pocket, no longer heavy, but still a part of me. I thought of Rachel, of my family, but the pain no longer cut as deeply. I'd learned to let go, not to forget, but to keep the past from imprisoning me. One evening, as I returned to my apartment after a shift, my phone buzzed. A text from Diana. "Lucas, Rachel sent you a letter. She asked me to pass it on. Should I send it?" I froze, clutching the phone. Rachel. I hadn't heard from her since our meeting in the park when she cried and apologized. I hesitated but replied, "Send it, Diana. Thank you." 3 days later, an envelope arrived, addressed in Rachel's familiar handwriting. I sat at my table, the desk lamp casting light on the white envelope, my heart racing. I opened it, took a deep breath, and read, "Lucas, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to write it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I regret every day for not being strong enough, for believing your mother, for letting Brandon manipulate me. I live in Austin, but it's not living. Brandon doesn't love me. He just wanted to beat you. I'm rebuilding step by step like you. I heard from Diana that you're helping veterans in San Antonio. I'm proud of you, Lucas. You've always been the strongest person I know. I hope one day you find peace like you've helped me find hope again. I won't write again, won't bother you. I just want you to live well. Rachel." I read it, tears welling but held back. Her letter wasn't a plea, it was a goodbye, not an end, but a release for both of us to move forward. I folded it carefully, opened the small wooden box on my shelf where I kept battlefield keepsakes. Tommy's photo, my military insignia, and now Rachel's letter. I closed the box, not replying. Not out of anger, but because I knew we both needed time to heal separately.